True form. Thank you. Prayers tonight will be taken by the Reverend Pete Dibden from the Life Community Baptist Church.
As we come to the Lord in prayer, we remember in Scripture that the prophet Jeremiah urges us to seek the peace and prosperity of the city and to pray for it. So this night we pray a blessing upon the council and all who work and live in the towns and villages of Horsham district. Lord, we pray for council staff, administrators and managers, accountants and bin collectors, neighbourhood wardens and environmental officers, the wellbeing team and the voluntary sector support, for all in the council who work and serve for the local people and the local communities. Lord, we pray that you'd give them skill and wisdom in their work, resilience under the stress and strain of their daily work, and compassion as they serve the community. And Lord, this night we lift up to you all the councillors here this evening as they talk about the future, planning for the future, protecting the environment and responding to questions and concerns from the public. Lord, grant wisdom and insight, skill and compassion, and give them peace in making difficult decisions. Lord, we lift the council and all the councillors to you this evening, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Sit down. Sit down. Right. Usual housekeeping announcements. Please note the fire exits over there and over there. Please make sure your mobile phones and other devices are switched to silent. As usual, the meeting is being live streamed. And please switch your microphone on when addressing council and off when you finish speaking. Thank you. Apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Emma Beard, Martin Boffey, Claudia Fisher, Cassie Greenwood, Richard Landau, and Jonathan Taylor. Do you have any other? No. Good. Moving on to the minutes of the last meeting. There's a correction in that the roles of chairman and vice chairman were incorrect in the minutes of the last meeting. This has now been amended. I therefore move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of September be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Does anyone wish to comment on the accuracy of the minutes? Are you all agreed that I sign the minutes as a correct record? Agreed. Thank you. Does any member have any interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? Good, thank you. Announcements. I have a couple of announcements. Following last time's meeting, I have written to Councillor Landau, sending him our good wishes from all of us and hoping for a speedy recovery. I would remind members that on the 9th of November, it's Remembrance Sunday. I know that those of you who represent towns and villages in the north and the south will probably be attending your own remembrance services, but those that aren't, I hope that you will all attend the remembrance service in the Carfax, and you will get detailed timings of that beforehand. And I would ask as many as possible, not just to attend the commemoration in the Carfax, but to come on to the parish church afterwards, which I think is an integral part of the day. My other announcement is, you remember that when we met in Stenning, Councillor Livingstone introduced a motion on prostate cancer. We've had one response from Doctor Surgery so far, which is a little bit tardy, I think. So I'm proposing that we send a follow-up reminder so we get a few more responses to that. And I also suggest that we contact the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee of West Sussex and let them know what we're doing on that matter. Deputy Leader announcement.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm required by the Constitution to report that the Cabinet took an urgent decision at its meeting on 24th of September regarding the approval for the submission of the business case and proposal for local government reorganisation in West Sussex. The decision was treated as urgent on the basis that any delay in its implementation would pose a risk of harm to residents and/or prejudice the interests of the Council. The Chairman of the Finance and Performance Policy and Scrutiny Committee agreed that the decision was urgent and could not reasonably be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayham. Councillor Fletcher, I believe you have an announcement.
Very much. Thank you very much. Apologies to those who were here at the earlier Cabinet meeting. You're going to hear this twice, but I hope it's useful to say it again for the benefit of those who won't. I'm making this announcement because, as some of you may have already have seen, there was an article in yesterday's Guardian claiming that Rachel Reeves has cleared Sussex planning blockage amid good relationship with developer, which we assume is a reference to the issue of water neutrality. We had been advised an announcement would be made by DEFRA about water neutrality at the end of this week. We had therefore arranged an all-member briefing so that you would all be fully up to date and in a good position to communicate clearly to residents and stakeholders on this important matter. I know we are all very well aware that in response to the restrictions of water neutrality imposed by Natural England's position statement, HDC officers, together with officers from other affected neighbouring local authorities, and partners including Natural England, the Environment Agency, Southern Water and DEFRA, have invested much time and public money under successive administrations to deliver appropriate solutions. The councils have developed guidance that developers are now using to achieve water neutrality through increased water efficiencies, the use of alternative supplies such as boreholes, and offsetting residual increased demand against savings secured at other properties in the area. We have been working alongside the government on this issue for over 4 years now. In a face-to-face meeting with the leader of the council in January, DEFRA Minister Emma Hardy agreed that having a managed exit from water neutrality was essential, so we have proceeded on this basis in partnership with affected neighbouring councils. I'm pleased to say that the managed exit has jointly been developed through the Sussex North Water Certification Scheme. This was formerly known as SNOWS, or the Sussex North Offsetting Water Scheme. This is now ready to launch. However, as we were expecting an announcement on Friday regarding water neutrality, which may have implications for the rollout of this scheme, we delayed the announcement of its launch. Should Natural England's position now change on water neutrality, there will need to be assurance and evidence to substantiate any new position, just as there was when Natural England issued its original position statement in September 2021. This council will always put the needs and interests of Horsham district residents and its natural environment first. We believe in openness and transparency, which is why I'm making this announcement this evening. The all-member briefing will go ahead as planned, at which members will receive further details and be able to ask questions, and additional information and guidance will be made public in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Are there any other Cabinet announcements? No, thank you. No announcement from the Chief Executive. No questions from the public. So I move on to recommendations from the Cabinet on from the 17th of September on the Highwood Community Facility request for construction funding. I hand over to Councillor Ruth Fletcher to introduce this report and move the recommendation.
Thank you. Apologies, it's me yet again. I'm introducing this item in the absence of Councillor Jonathan Taylor. Further to the approval in the June Council meeting for funding to progress designs of a community facility at Highwood, we have presented and received approval to recommend to Council the proposal to construct a moderate-sized community hall, changing rooms and car park. By way of background, this facility had its beginning in 2008 when the West of Horsham Master Plan established provision for a community building within Den neighbourhood following local consultation. Subsequently, as part of the planning agreement with Berkeley Homes, the Council secured the provision of land to build a new community building to serve the growing population of the new estate. In 2022, a scheme was designed for a community hall, toilet facilities, car park, and a separate building for a nursery. When the design was priced, estimated costs exceeded approved budgets, and along with the nursery provider deciding the project was no longer viable for them, the project stalled. In September 2025, the proposal was presented to the Finance and Performance Policy and Scrutiny Committee. Concerns were raised about the cost of running a hall and secondly of just the changing facilities. Discussion also took place about the value for money of creating a hall. The residential development is now well established and Berkeley Homes have almost completed building 2 7-a-side football pitches, a Muga and a playground. We anticipate the transfer of these facilities in the near future when the final health and safety items have been completed. To use the pitches for official use by girls' football, which is a key focus in our annual plan, changing rooms and toilets are required. The building of a community hall at the same time as the changing rooms and car park makes financial sense as the contractor's preliminary costs are not doubled, saving approximately £650,000. We anticipate this area will quickly develop into the community hub for the estate, which is still growing. Community feedback from the survey indicates that a hall would be used for low-impact exercise and well-being, children's birthday parties, social gatherings, and arts and creative workshops. At the present time, there is interest in managing the changing room facilities, which have an estimated operational cost of £9,000 per annum. It's envisaged that over time, a local community group would take on the management of the facility, thereby taking the estimated operational costs of £35,000 out of the council's revenue budget. Likely income from hiring of the hall to offset these costs is estimated currently at £21,000. The recommendations in the approved cabinet approved cabinet report support taking this project forward to construction and delivering a community facility that will be a hub for the estate. This is a project that has been promised ever since Highwood was first proposed, and the council has in the intervening years repeatedly reiterated its commitment to delivering it for the new community. It's very obvious how important a community facility like this is for a place like Highwood, and how much the residents are appreciating the very limited community facilities that have been recently introduced there. It gives us real confidence that there is a need for this and of the huge benefits in community cohesion that a facility like this will bring. I'm pleased that this is part of our administration's continuing record of delivery and that we'll be able to take this project forward.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Thank you, Councillor Raby. Do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll speak later. Thank you.
Right, I open the floor to debate. Anyone wish? Okay, if no one has got a... Councillor Raby.
No.
Oh, sorry, Councillor No.
Thank you, Chairman. I just didn't want there to be a horrible silence on this. My group obviously have discussed this. I hope that. Having said this before, not so long ago, when I said we would do something and I got let down, I hope we're all going to agree to this now, but our group are going to support this because we feel that the community needs it. And we've already had this discussion on many occasions, and communities must come first. And that's the reason we're all here. However, I just want to make the point that as we are supporting communities within Horsham, I just hope that in the future, as HDC begins to wind down, that those parishes outside Horsham are remembered when they want to establish community halls or community facilities as LGR comes upon us and we realise that we've got to devolve some of our powers down to what will become the second tier of local government, i.e. parish councils, and look upon them favourably when they need help to re-establish themselves in the new order. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Right, Councillor Raby.
Yeah, firstly, I'm obviously fully in support of this, and I just wanted to reassure Councillor Noel that as a group, we're fully supportive of community facilities as new developments go forward. We equally agree that that's something that's important for every village and small town and community across HDC. I think this particular community centre has got a real opportunity to become an excellent hub for the community, but it's also within walking distance from the Needles, which is one of our more deprived areas, which doesn't have the same range of bigger facilities. So I think the fact that you've got the football pitches and the playground will actually bring together the existing community and the ever-growing community at Highwood. And I can see that outside space being an opportunity for, summer fetes and things that we have in, our own communities. It's something that I value in my village of Colgate. And we only got a small space, but the fact that we've got the hall there brings the community together in a way that if you don't have those shared spaces, you can really miss out on. So I think this is going to be great, and I can't wait to see this. And hopefully everyone's going to be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raby. Councillor Fletcher.
I think
Wind
it's all
up.
been said. Thank you very much.
Good. Okay. So I can put this to the vote. All those in favour... Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Listening very carefully to what Councillor Raby said, he specifically said to new developments. As our communities grow everywhere around the district, I hope that his comments also referred to existing facilities that need to be enlarged or replaced as well, rather than just new facilities. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. I now put this to the vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 11 of the agenda, please show. That appears to be unanimous, so thank you for that. Moving on to appointment of an independent member of the Audit Committee. I invite the Director of Resources, Dominic Bradley, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chairman. The current independent member of the Audit Committee, Paul King, informed me a couple of months ago that unfortunately, due to ill health, he intended to stand down from his role. In fact, one of the recommendations you see before you in the report is for the Council to record its thanks to Paul for his service, which I know has been extremely helpful to the Audit Committee Chairman, the Audit Committee itself, and to officers too. And I also want to thank Paul and send him our best wishes and support for the challenges with his health that lay ahead. As a result of this news, we commenced a recruitment exercise for a replacement independent member, and I'm pleased to report that we had several applicants who were suitable for the role. Dave Cornfield was chosen after a successful interview with the chairman of the Audit Committee and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. And Dave, who's actually at the back of the room tonight, waiting very patiently over there, so give him a little wave, is a certified and chartered internal auditor with over 20 years of experience in the financial services sector, and is currently working for MetLife, an insurance company, as head of audit. And he's also lived in Horsham for 20 years, so knows the area well. So the report on page 13 therefore recommends that the Council appoint Dave Cornfield as the co-opted, non-voting, independent member of the Audit Committee until the 31st of March 2028 with immediate effect, and also to record its thanks to the outgoing member, Paul King, for his service.
Thank you. Is there a proposer for the motion? Councillor Livingston? Yeah. And a seconder, Councillor Emery? Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Livingston.
I'd just like to give my personal thanks. I'd just like to give my personal thanks to Paul King. He has contributed to the discussions and provided the technical expertise which us on the Audit Committee gained confidence in our assurance in regard to the Council's performance. We interviewed 3 excellent candidates and we have chosen Dave Cornfield. I look forward to him becoming part of the Audit Committee team. But I would personally like to thank Mr. Paul King for his service to the committee, and I'm sure all members of the Audit Committee wish him all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Livingston. Hopefully we can put that in writing from your proposal. Yeah. Councillor Emery, did you want to say anything?
I fully concur with the comments made, and
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Fletcher.
I would just like to welcome Dave Cornfield, and I say that as a previous member of the Audit Committee. It can be quite daunting joining the Audit Committee as a non-accountant and non-auditor. It's highly technical, there is a huge volume of material to get through, and it sounds like we're incredibly lucky to have you with your background, and I think you can play a really valuable role in supporting our committee members. So very much welcome to Horsham District Council.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Livingston, did you wish to reply?
I think I've said everything needed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 13 in the agenda, please show.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Political balance and committee membership update 2025-26. I invite Lauren Kelly to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Following changes to the Council's composition, a political balance review has been undertaken to determine the allocation of seats on committees to the different political groups. In undertaking the review, the Council is required, so far as is reasonably practicable, to give effect to certain principles laid down in legislation in the following order. The first being that no single political group should get all of the seats on each committee. The second being that if a political group has a majority, they should get most of the seats on each committee. The third principle being that across all of the committees, seats should reflect each group size on the Council. And the fourth being, within each committee, seats should reflect each group size on the Council. After applying the rules, 48 seats go to the political groups and 4 go to ungrouped members. Accordingly, this evening, members are asked to agree the allocation of committee seats and to appoint members and co-optees to the committees. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a proposer for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Bayham. And a seconder? Councillor Noel, I think we were looking for you to second this. Thank you. I think there's a, you asked for a couple of changes? Yep.
Yes, I have. I understand that this has been taken into account already, and I'd ask the monitoring officer to verify those changes, please.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, I'll read. You've requested a couple of changes to proposed allocations are set out in Appendix A on page 23 to 25, namely to substitute Councillor Vickers onto Finance Performance Subcommittee in place of Councillor Landau, and on the Standards Committee in place of Councillor Lambert.
Yes, with Councillor Vickers. Thank you.
And Councillor Bayman, are you happy with these amendments?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to make any other comments? Councillor Manton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a minor one, really. As you are aware, I have a protected characteristic Qualities Act that under 12 nothing has been mentioned. It doesn't matter to me too much, but I would like it to be recognised.
Councillor Manton, we'll take that into account in future. Any other comments? Right, move to the vote on this then. All those in favour of approving the recommendations on page 19 of the agenda as altered, please show. Against? One against. Any abstentions? That's clearly carried. Thank you. Reports from representatives. Do we have any reports from representatives? Councillor Belinda Waters.
Thank you, Chair. This is in my role as being the Council's representative on HASC, which is the Health and Social Care Scrutiny Committee down at West Sussex County Council. It's just to notify everyone that you'll be aware that the government has requested that the ICBs reduce their costs by 50%. Consequently, Sussex has been looking at how it might be able to do this, as has some of the other ICBs around. As a result of that work, Surrey and Sussex have decided that they're going to merge. They're going to merge along the lines of the mayoral combined authorities. So this is preempting what might happen sort of like in the next year or so. Population is going to be 3 million, which is huge. It's going to be called Sussex and Surrey ICB with effect from the 1st of April 2026. They've started work on looking at how they're going to integrate the systems and obviously all the lines of responsibility. There is a new chair who will be working across both ICBs from the 1st of October this year until the merger, and that just happens to be the gentleman who's the current chair of Surrey ICB. So he'll be looking at after those. And then there'll be a new CEO appointed from September this year to start 1st of October this year, and then to carry on once the ICBs have been brought together from the 1st of April. There is a report which I probably won't circulate, but it will be available through West Sussex County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Bain.
Just a very quick one, if I may. I sit on the Sussex Police and Crime Panel, whose meetings are recorded and available online, and the minutes are available. So if anybody's interested, then they can look at that directly. But one thing that came out from the meeting we had last week was the term of office for the current Police and Crime Commissioner. It had been sort of thought that that would end with the election of the mayor, but in fact, her term of office, that's Katie Bourne's term of office, will continue until May 2027, at which point she will hand. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other representatives? No, okay. Right, we'll move on to notice of motion. We've received one notice of motion. The time allowed for this is 1 hour, and I'd like to keep the debate within that hour. As such, please can I ask members to keep their contribution to the point of the motion. I invite Councillor John Trollope to introduce and present this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Since June of this year, I have been involved in working with a group of local residents in Billingshurst called Save Billy Oaks, with the aim of finding legal means to stop 2 oak trees from being felled to fix a subsidence issue involving a nearby residence. However, this is far from an isolated case, with trees around our country at risk because insurance companies choose to cut them down as the cheapest way of settling the claim, and the law allows them to do this. The potential loss of such significant green infrastructure raises serious questions about how we balance precaution with preservation. I call on insurance companies to change this approach and instead work with district and parish councils to ensure claims are settled in a timely manner whilst preserving our vital tree heritage. Trees play a pivotal role in mitigating the impact of climate change and are known to host over 1,000 species, as well as being cherished by most in our community. Whilst we cannot change the law with this motion, we can improve how councillors and officers work together to ensure the best outcome for all parties. This council notes that A, tree preservation orders, TPOs, are a vital tool for protecting trees of significant amenity value, and 2, trees provide great benefit to our communities. That under current legislation, particularly the Town and Country Planning Tree Preservation England Regulations 2012, local authorities may be liable for compensation claims where consent to fell or prune a protected tree is refused and damage or loss is subsequently incurred. That several other local authorities have also written to the government calling for legislative reform around TPOs and associated compensation liabilities. And that officers, A, are reviewing current procedures to ensure tree felling applications are handled rigorously, taking into account the amenity value of the trees and any alternatives to felling, with ward members' consultation as standard. B, are exploring methodologies to assign measurable values to trees protected by TPOs. And C, will report progress to the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. This council believes that the law should be amended to limit liability to situations where it has been demonstrated that there is no viable alternative to felling a tree and the local authority still refuses consent. And that reform is necessary to ensure that local authorities can confidently refuse applications to fell without fear of disproportionate financial consequences. This council resolves to ask the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure to A, write to the Secretary of State for Housing, Community and Local Government and the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, urging them to review and amend the legislation governing TPOs and compensation liability, and B, request that the local government association and relevant professional bodies, e.g. the Agricultural Association, support this call for reform and engage with government on behalf of local authorities.
Thank you, Councillor Trollope. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll speak now, Chairman, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful to Councillor Trollope for bringing this motion and to the Billingshurst residents and Billingshurst Parish Council who inspired it by battling so hard to save 2 oak trees on Parish Council land. I'm also very pleased to note the improvements being made at Horsham District Council as a direct consequence of these efforts, so that we can properly measure and take account of the value of our trees and try to better protect them for our communities. I think it's worth describing the facts of the matter which inspired the motion so councillors can be clear. The trees in question are healthy and quite magnificent, about 200 years old and home to a multitude of wildlife. If left alone, they could live for hundreds of years into the future. The trees are subject to tree protection orders. Their value to the community is officially recognised. 2,000 local people signed a petition to save the trees, and local press and the BBC have diligently covered the case, reflecting its gravity. The survey that has advised the removal of the trees does so with the legally allowable judgment that the trees are probably the cause of subsidence to an extension of a nearby property. However, there are other possibilities that have not been completely ruled out, including a question around the depth of the foundations of the room affected. In addition, that there might be a possibility, however small, that felling the trees does not solve the problem, there is also a possibility that removing them may cause heave damage to properties nearby. So consider that for a moment. Removing the trees because it is probable that they are causing damage may cause damage. How probable is it, I wonder? And presumably so do the owners of the other homes in the vicinity. Most crucially, there are other ways to correct the subsidence in the affected room of the property in question, not least underpinning, which would solve the homeowner's problem and retain the trees. However, this is estimated at a cost of £50,000 or in excess of £50,000 and would have to be borne by the parish council. So effectively, it would be a cost to the community of Billingshurst at a time when every penny of public money must punch way above its weight, all to keep something valuable when what is affected is correctly insured. Councillors, in my opinion, it is perverse that the multi-billion-pound insurance company that collects the premiums for this property does not have to make good the damage without pressuring a village parish council to fell important trees valued by the community there. If the company does not have the social conscience nor the self-policing instincts to see that, and I'm afraid it has proved it does not, then the law must change to ensure it. If you agree, we will write to the government and ask for legislative review and adjustment. Of course, a review will take time. It's not guaranteed to be successful, and many trees may be unnecessarily lost in the meantime. Also, we are dealing with a government that does not inspire much confidence in this regard. The Climate and Nature Bill got binned earlier this year, and the Planning and Infrastructure Bill the government is pushing through supposes that paying into a central fund instead of continuing local recovery efforts will somehow reverse nature decline, which it won't because wildlife behaviour dictates that it can't. On this point, I refer the government to the Lawton Principles. Further, as mentioned earlier, there have been reports in the national press today that the government continues to spread a false narrative that important wildlife is somehow to blame for the housing crisis, when developers already have permissions to the tune of about 1.2 million of the government's 1.5 million target for this Parliament. Our Chancellor boasts of both not caring about rare species and being close to developers, which I suppose would explain it. Meanwhile, the startling depletion of nature in the UK goes on. As I said, I am grateful to Councillor Trollope and to the residents of Billingshurst for the persistent efforts that they should not have to make. And I'm grateful to the Parish Council that finds itself in an impossible position. It called off the recent planned felling while it tries for a miracle and trusts it will not be sued by a multi-billion-pound insurance company that has 10 times more staff than populates the entire village of Billingshurst. I hope you will support John's motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I now open this debate to the floor. Councillor Circus.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I welcome very much this initiative, and I'm sure as a group we are going to be highly supportive of it. But in a way, I'm going to leave it with the proposers whether they wish to make a slight amendment to this motion, because we're asked to note that tree preservation orders are a vital tool for protecting trees of significant amenity value. That's only half the story, because of course conservation areas play an important part. And I've been much involved in the creation of the conservation area for parts of West Chiltington, and it was originally called the Wells Cottages Conservation Area, and I said that's rather inadequate because what we really want to protect is the ambience, and the ambience is created to a large extent by the enormous amount of tree cover. So we now have the lanes, the West Chiltington Lanes Conservation Area, and that means we have tree protection by virtue of it being a conservation area. And I've been working with Andy Bush on a quick guide to what householders can do in a conservation area, which has been distributed to all the people in my immediate vicinity. So I'm just wondering, Chairman, whether to strengthen, if you like, to enhance the motion, whether the proposers might wish to slightly change it, the wording, so that it says, this council notes that tree preservation orders and conservation areas are vital tools for protecting trees of significant amenity value. I wonder, I'll just leave it with them, but I think that would enhance the motion, Chairman, and perhaps they would, I mean, conservation areas are a significant way in which we protect trees, and therefore it's slightly inadequate just to concentrate on TPOs. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. Councillor Trollope, would you be prepared to accept that amendment?
It's not really contextually the same. I mean, for starters, this area is not in a conservation area, to my knowledge. I'd probably have to triple check that, but it's not. And whilst I admire the idea, I just don't really feel like it fits. This here is really talking about how we deal with insurance companies and how we deal with working more effectively with officers to ensure that the procedures are in place to ensure, for example, that we're informed of these issues. Part of what happened in Billingshurst and is the fact that I found out about a lot of what happened far after the fact of when the decisions were made. The TPOs, they weren't quite lifted. It's a technical aspect. The permission was given to fell the trees with the TPO in place. It's a nuance, but it's an important nuance. But that decision was made without any consultation with councillors. And when I found out about it, it was too late to do anything about it. It's
Okay,
more aimed at toward this. Thank you. Sorry.
I think you heard that, Councillor Serkis. I suggest we continue with the debate, and if you wish to move that as an amendment, we do that at the end rather than...
Yes, I think I will move a formal amendment.
Okay, but let's continue with the debate, and I'll come back to you for that amendment. Sorry, Councillor Croker.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up that point, I'd be happy to second that amendment, should Councillor Serkis feel up to putting it. Thank you. On a broader point, I'd like to thank Councillor Trollope for bringing this motion, and also with it the welcome knowledge that officers are working on making things more transparent in this area. Regrettably, though, encroachment on route protection zones, and I must make the point that the RPZs we see quoted are minimum route protection zones, is a continuing problem. Planning yesterday came up against that one. And I think historically, permitted development rights might have caused more than a few of these issues. On the brighter side, I understand that British Standard 5837 is currently undergoing a review, which may well end up as a code of practice to give it a bit more strength, and also might introduce the concept of route opportunity areas for young trees. So rather than measuring a tree that's there, you consider what might happen in the future. I think we all know what usually happens, unless they get cut down, of course. Similarly, canopy growth will be considered. But for now, I'm quite happy to support this motion, but as I said, I will be supporting Councillor Serkis's amendment should he go forward with it.
Thank you, Councillor Croker. Any? Councillor Knowles.
Thank you very much, Chair. We have a very similar situation in Cowfold, where we have a beautiful veteran oak tree in the centre of one of the small estates in the village. It's on Acorn Avenue, and the roads around it are Oak Apple Close, Holm Oaks and Oakfield Avenue, yet it's one of the few remaining oak trees in the estate. It's next to a pond, a playing ground, a playground, and it's well loved and by children and walkers. And when we found out that there was an issue with subsidence in one of the nearby houses, which was built prior to the appropriate foundation requirements. Obviously, the house was built much after the tree first arrived. The parish council initially tried to fight it, but they ran out of road on that, and the insurance company used their usual bullying tactics to tell everyone that they would be responsible, Horsham District and also the Cowfold parish, who own the land where the tree is growing. The local residents found out about this and were so incensed by this fell-first policy of insurance companies that they got together, and we commissioned a structural engineer's report, which was funded by residents, and which showed that the request that they'd originally submitted didn't take into account all of the possible structural issues with the ground, the hydrology of the ground, and it really wasn't felt that felling was going to be the best instance, that this would really could be fixed with root protection for the extension, and that would be a much better course of action. The caveat value for the tree, that's the capital asset value for the amenity trees, is nearly £100,000. The cost of the root protection would be similar to the Billingshurst. So it's an absolute no-brainer for me that we insist that the council does look at the motion and put forward it's a great motion. Thank you very much, Councillor Trollope, for that. As in Billingshurst, this tree was initially held to blame, although we've really found out that it's not. So delighted to be able to support the motion and hope that it goes through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knowles. Is anyone else to... I was half expecting Councillor Fletcher, as we're requesting her to do quite a bit.
I'm really pleased that this motion has been brought to Council, and I'd like to reiterate the thanks to Councillor Trollope and the others who've been involved in the excellent work behind this, and including discussions with officers about how we can take this forward. I will be delighted to respond to the requests on me in the text of this motion. And I particularly want to highlight that part of the motion says the council notes, and in that this is noting what the council can do. We are not able to do everything because of the state of the law. That's why we propose writing, but we are intending to take the action that is in our control, and review the procedures that we have for tree felling applications. And maybe it's some reassurance to Councillor Circus that the wording of the motion is that we're reviewing current procedures to ensure tree felling applications are handled rigorously. That's not limited to specific tree preservation order applications. So I think that actually probably does cover the conservation area issue there. I'm particularly pleased that we are going to be able to improve the amount of ward member consultation in this process. One of the features of this kind of issue are that by the time people find out about it, it can be too late. So we will be looking at how we can make sure that local members are alerted when these sorts of applications come in. There are a number of methodologies that are used to assess the value of trees. The different methodologies have different strengths and weaknesses. We are able to review those and use them as appropriate according to the locations and those strengths and weaknesses, and officers are going to look at that in detail. So from that point of view, I'm really happy about that, but it does remain that there is a problem with the current law that effectively allows insurance companies to take a fell first approach, which can be totally disproportionate to the value of the tree, to the cost of the alternative mitigations that could be taken place, and does not place sufficient weight on factors such as the trees very often being in place before the houses were built, and the fact that as we get increased hot, dry summers and very heavy rainfall in our clay type soils, that soil movement is something that is increasing anyway. It's not necessarily that the primary factor is the trees causing problems. The trees are actually have a generally moderating impact in our environment and are a positive influence. We shouldn't be led to cutting down trees just because we already have issues of increased soil drying and increased soil wetting due to climate change. So overall, I'm really supportive of this motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm generally supportive of this motion. However, I had always assumed, perhaps wrongly, particularly in the case of TPO trees, because I just look at my ward and possibly the ones next door, is that normally when a TPO tree is coming up for being felled or manipulated or whatever it is, these show up in the weekly planning lists. I just hope that the Director of Place makes sure that all the trees appear in those listings on a weekly basis and none are missed. As I said, I'd assumed, so I was surprised to hear that this particular case had turned up and members weren't aware, assuming the tree was a TPO tree rather than just a non-TPO tree, which I'm not sure what the case was in Billingshurst, but if it was TPO'd, members should have known about it, I would have thought, rather than being caught by surprise. I think if I understood what Councillor Fletcher said, if I understood it, basically incorporating into some sort of reporting system, you know, items where trees are to be felled, even if they're not TPO trees, I think would be a useful step forward. And I would support that, though I'm not quite sure how one would do it practically. And you know that I'm always looking for the practical solution to stuff rather than the theoretical solution. However, for the Director of Place and Planning function, I would also point out that when we do planning applications, there are planting schemes incorporated, like, for instance, the one last night. Now, in that planning application, I noticed Quercus robustus being incorporated in a number of the flower beds and locations around that planning application in Billingshurst. These are oaks we're talking about. These trees not only take a long time to grow, but they grow to be very big. So I have a question, perhaps, that our planning gurus can actually look at the planting schemes to make sure they make sense and we don't end up with a problem further down the road. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Sorry, Councillor Brooks.
This might be my briefest contribution to the council. I just wanted to remind Councillor Clark, because I'm sure he knows this, and he might have accidentally misspoke. The English oak is Quercus robur, not Quercus robustus. The words are related, but they are not the same word, and I wouldn't want any person to be misled entirely inadvertently by that little slip-up.
Sorry, Chairman, I've spent too much time in the last 2 days in an arboretum, so there are so many Quercus whatever, but I think you get the message.
Okay. Right.
Councillor Mercer.
Councillor Manns?
Councillor Mercer.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Mercer.
Yes, Chairman, I'm tucked away at the end. I welcome the motion. It's about strengthening this council's processes and to protect important trees, and it's suggested that government amend the relevant legislation to ensure insurance companies take on the liabilities that customers' policy payments are meant to cover. The thing is that tree protection orders are not the only or always the best way to protect trees. So I have there are a number of very mature TPO'd oaks which are delightful and a part of an old estate. At 8:15 one Sunday morning, with the sound of saws, we found that there was a company that had been contracted to cut down not the TPO'd trees, but the trees in the row behind them that had not been TPO'd because of the nature of TPOs, which tends to be those trees that have a visual impact on other people. And a significant number of, yes, slightly smaller trees were cut down, but they were mature oaks. Before anybody could do anything about it, the council arboriculturalist was actually on holiday in Italy at the time. Nobody knew anything about it. And in essence, the TPO had, you know, it wasn't the TPO process that had anything to do with protecting those trees. What eventually happened was that I found a Forestry Commission regulation that basically said you had to have a tree felling licence to cut down the amount of wood that had been cut down. And whilst those trees will never return because they had already been cut down, there are at least now 20 saplings in the area which should regrow. Remembering this is an area where a developer was seeking to build 12 houses, which was why the action had been taken. My point is this: anything which protects our trees in whatever way we can find in the existing legislation, I think is a strong and important thing to do. and therefore I do have some sympathy with the suggested amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Trollope, you've heard various comments made about things around TPOs. Does that change your mind about accepting Councillor Serkis's amendment?
Yes, could I hear the exact proposed wording?
Councillor Serkis.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. What I would propose is that we say that the council notes that tree preservation orders and conservation areas, because if we don't do that, we are saying that trees in conservation areas that are not subject to TPOs are worthy of less protection. And that's not the view the council officers take. And they will, I had a recent example, if I may just mention this, where somebody in the locality was cutting down trees. I hadn't seen an application, and I got Andy Bush to go round and stop them in their tracks and threaten them with prosecution. Now, this is power that we have to protect trees. And if we just say it's only TPOs, we're encouraging people to think, oh, there isn't a TPO, so I'm all right. What we need to say is there are several avenues that this authority can take to protect trees. And we are basically understating our powers. So, to fulfill your request, I think we should say that tree preservation orders and conservation areas are vital tools for protecting trees of significant amenity value. That is no more than a statement of truth and a statement of fact. And we're underselling the powers of this council if we do not take that on board.
Thank you, Councillor Serkis. Councillor Trollope, are you happy with that small amendment? Small but significant amendment, I would say.
I still feel that it's...
Well,
sorry.
If you're not, then we'll just move to a vote on the amendment.
I mean, my response to it is that it's apples and oranges. I think it's a different...
Okay, right. So, Councillor Serkis, we will take your amendment and then we will vote on the substantive motion.
Well,
I think, okay.
A point of order. Could we have two separate votes? One on the proposed amendment and then one on whatever...
Yes, we will. Yes, yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
So, Councillor Croker, do you wish to second?
I do wish to second.
Thank you. Right. Does anybody wish to debate Councillor Serkis's amendment? Councillor Ellis-Brown first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure Councillor Serkis' motion is necessary because trees in a conservation area, depending on their size, are protected anyway. Whether they have a and we may get some clarity on this, whether they have a TPO or not. So adding that element to the conservation area, I'm not sure is actually necessary in this instance.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted that sort of absolute clarity because obviously I haven't had time to review the legislation regarding conservation areas as much as because the conservation regarding tree protection orders is actually listed in this motion. So can I go to an officer maybe just to validate that? And I trust the Chair of Planning, of course, but is it that TPOs and conservation areas provide currently the same protection of trees? And thus, in my opinion, I would be potentially happy with the amendment, even though the legislation around conservation areas doesn't seem to be mentioned in this motion. Thank you.
Could I ask the Director of Place to clarify?
Yes, I'm happy to confirm that the Chair of Planning Committee is correct in what he said.
Okay, that clarification. Right. I now move to a vote on the amendment.
Does Philip second want to speak?
Did you, sorry, Councillor Crocus, did you wish to speak on the amendment?
Very briefly, yes. Thank you. Partly the reason I'm happy to second this amendment is that
as Councillor Circus has suggested, conservation areas tend sometimes to get forgotten in terms of trees, and by bringing this change, I think it just raises awareness, which I think is important. It's something that Councillor Fletcher touched on in her comments earlier. So yes, I'm more than happy to second this and hope it succeeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Croker. Councillor Trollope, you do have the right to reply on this amendment, should you wish.
I understand that we need to protect trees in conservation areas as well. Absolutely. I still feel it doesn't belong in this proposal. I think they're two separate issues, and I would welcome an additional motion to cover that. But I think to piggyback on this, I think dilutes what we're trying to do in the original motion. So while supportive of the idea of protecting trees in conservation areas, I would ask that perhaps somebody raise that as a separate motion for next meeting.
Thank you. Right. We will now move to a vote on the amendment to insert the conservation areas wording within the motion. All those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, so that amendment is carried. We can now return to debating the substantive motion, if anyone has got any further comments to make on that motion. No? Okay, in that case, we will now move to a vote on the substantive motion. All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is clearly carried. Right, we now move to members' questions on notice. And our first question is from Councillor Circus. And this is a question to Councillor Morrison.
Given the growing problem of fires being caused by irresponsible disposal of vapes, will the Cabinet member do what he can to increase publicity on the importance of proper use and disposal of vapes? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The answer, of course, is yes. To go a little further, disposable vapes have, as you all know, now been banned by the government. But this hasn't seen a reduction in vapes in the waste streams. Unfortunately, they're now being sold as reusable because they're still very cheap, so they still get thrown away. We know of the impact that vapes can have when disposed of in an irresponsible manner. We've seen the fires in our refuse collection vehicles and our staff at risk as a result, the vehicles at risk as a result, and financial risks linked to that. And if our crews need to tip a load onto the public highway in order to avoid a vehicle fire, there's significant impact for residents. We do regularly run awareness campaigns on the appropriate disposal of vapes, and we've used footage of the fires as part of this. We can take vapes for disposal as part of our small electrical collections, and residents just need to book this in, and it's a free service. We try to make this service as simple as convenient as possible to encourage residents to use it. And West Sussex County Council also run campaigns on the safe disposal of vapes. There are a number of examples of fires at refuse sites as a result of vapes and other products with lithium batteries going through waste processing at disposal sites. Vapes can also be disposed of in shops which have dedicated vape disposal bins or be taken to recycling centres. And this council is running a trial on encouraging residents to dispose of vapes safely, and we've installed bins in Horsham Pavilions Leisure Centre and Chanctonbury Leisure Centre in Storrington. They haven't seen a lot of use, unfortunately. So clearly, as much publicity as we can get will be making a difference.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Circus, do you wish to ask supplementary?
Yes, please. I wonder whether the Cabinet member would also, because it's related, include ordinary batteries within the warning to householders, because the amount of improper disposal of ordinary batteries is frankly appalling. If you go to the MBT plant up at Horsham, you will see enormous piles of these batteries that should never have been put in domestic waste. So I wonder whether the Cabinet member would like or be willing to extend that as part of his general campaign to warn people of the dangers of batteries.
Councillor Mercer.
Thank you for the secondary question. In fact, we do include ordinary batteries in the campaign because they are dangerous, as you so rightly point out. The particular question was about vapes, so that's why I was focusing on that, the answer. But clearly any publicity needs to cover all batteries, not just lithium batteries, because those batteries are also potentially dangerous.
Councillor Circus, did you wish to make a statement?
Yes, please. If I'd like to thank the Cabinet member very much for his very positive response. It seems to me that householders and others are simply not taking this issue seriously. And anything we can do to ramp up people taking it seriously is to be welcomed. And I think there are two important aspects to this. The first is highlighted by an article in today's Times. A fire that killed a 6-year-old girl was caused by a vape pen that caught alight. So this is very important health and safety issue. This is a real and substantial risk to people on the health and safety front. And that alone is a good enough reason. If you want a secondary reason, Biffa had a senior representative on the news not so long ago, pinpointing how much it cost Biffa to deal with what they claimed on that interview was 60 fires a day throughout the country at Biffa sites. Now that is a cost, and the figure, I can't remember what it was, but it was absolutely enormous. That is inevitably passed by Biffa onto the county council. Has to be part of the computation of what the county council pay for the running of the civic amenity sites. And that then gets passed on to residents, inevitably in increased council tax. So there's a secondary reason why it hits our residents. It's not only dangerous to our residents, it also hits our residents in the pocket. And I thank once again the Cabinet member for his very positive response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. Second question is from Councillor Paul Clark, again to Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chairman. Can the Cabinet Member for Environmental Health clarify whether planning consent is required in all cases for the conversion or construction of properties in our district intended for use as houses in multiple occupation, otherwise known as HMOs?
Again, Chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Clark. In fact, using a dwelling as an HMO only requires planning permission if it is to be occupied by 7 or more people not from the same household. We license HMOs in which 5 or more people live in these circumstances. So there is a slight disparity in the regulations there, which at the moment, is not necessarily taken account of. I would say also we have the new Renters' Rights Bill due to be coming through into an act, one assumes fairly soon, and that may well have further regulatory aspects to it that will relate to HMOs or their residents. So that's something that we wait to see exactly what the regulations are. I should say, just to be clear, currently on the licensed side, we have just 24 licensed HMOs, and this number has remained stable for the last few years. And we do not have any evidence, for example, of an influx of asylum seekers into HMOs in our area.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Clark, did you wish to ask a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chairman. Thank you for that response. Basically, second question is, does the Cabinet Member support the proposal to proactively monitor and log all HMOs? You've just outlined that we don't do them all. I'm saying all HMOs across the district. This is in order to build a comprehensive understanding of their presence and also of their condition triggered by the hotel in Siswood.
Well, they're two slightly different things. I'd certainly, just to take the second one first, the advice that I've received about Siswood House is that it is not required to be registered as an HMO, and it still falls in line with the definition of a hotel. So that's slightly different. Personally, when I became aware of this, thanks to your question, my immediate instinct was probably the same one as yours, which is that this is something that needs to be rationalised. Now, exactly how we would do that and what the implications would be in terms of resources, we haven't followed through yet. And of course, as I said, the Renters' Rights Bill may well also play into that same game. So it's something that I'd want to keep under review in coordination with my colleagues in planning to make sure that we have a better picture of the HMOs across the pitch, and also in relation to our new responsibilities under the Renters' Rights Bill.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark, did you wish to make a statement?
Yes, please. Well, thank you for that reply. My question basically arose from a panorama documentary which I saw recently on the BBC, and some footage which I saw on Sky and GB News. And in summary, what triggered the question was the footage showed 2 issues with HMOs in various parts of the country. The first issue was the fact that local councils didn't know how many HMOs were in their area, which led to well-documented issues such as social unrest and disaffection amongst certain people and certain areas. The second issue, as far as I'm concerned, is that as the councils did not know what was there, they could not check and monitor the state of the HMOs, which did cause me some concern. Now, these HMOs are rented by agencies linked to central government, and we know what that could mean. As a good example, HDC demonstrated a good grasp on the conditions, for example, at Siswood House, of what it was like. And basically, that was also rented by an agency linked to central government, and we had to intervene. So it shows that there is ground there for us to be aware of what could happen in these HMOs. That's why I was proposing that we actively monitor the creation of new HMOs in a district, but also that we should monitor the state of all of them. And I mean proactively. So not just take a list and say, well, that's all right because they haven't changed since before. But, you know, regular inspections, I think, would be helpful. As you say, you know, that's because as far as I'm concerned, it's to ensure good governance of the habitations in their state, and that we need to be aware of what's going on in our district. The Renters' Rights Bill, as you say, may or may not affect that, and that, I'm quite happy for that to wait. But I just wanted to make the point that we owe it to these people to make sure that they live in conditions that are decent, whatever that might mean. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Perry, you have a question for Councillor Raby.
Thank you very much. Many of our local high streets and communities lack sufficient public toilet facilities, with Storrington having none at all. Local research by the Access Henfield Group highlights the need for more accessible ground floor and disabled-friendly toilets. This shortage affects residents, visitors and local businesses and has public health implications, particularly for older people, those with medical conditions such as prostate cancer and families. Other councils have successfully implemented community toilet schemes in which local businesses are supported with a small annual grant to allow the public to use their toilets without needing to make a purchase, benefiting both the businesses and residents. Public toilets have been recognised in academic studies as part of a wider public health approach, facilitating good hygiene, supporting dignity, enabling access to public spaces and supporting the health of local communities. Therefore, my question to the Cabinet member will be, will Horsham District Council consider introducing a community toilet scheme like those run by other councils to support public access to toilets in villages such as Storrington and Henfield and across the district wherever provision is currently inadequate?
Thank you. Councillor Raby.
Firstly, thank you for the question. In short, yes, but I'll give you a slightly longer answer than that. It's something that's already been, I mean, we've got a strong, I think, passion across the group, and I want to use this opportunity to make an apology to Councillor Clark, who I, in the Cabinet a couple of weeks ago, thought he wasn't supportive of accessible toilets, whereas in fact, in conversation, he 100% is. So I wanted to get that on record to apologise to Councillor Clark. It was actually, it was a heated element in two of our Cabinet items. One was Highwood with the toilet facilities, where I talked about the need for older people, people with disabilities, and actually having those toilet facilities would make a huge difference to people being able to access that. And also the changing places facilities proposed for the capital will mean, you know, so we're passionate about that. We're on the same page. It's already something that's been discussed as a group and as Cabinet to look at. So let me just go into how we think we might be able to roll that out so we can actually put some more bones on, let's make something happen. So yes, but how would we do that? So the successful scheme locally that was done in Eastbourne was local businesses and community venues that then enabled their facilities to be for public use. So there were two elements to that. So yes, it was modest grant funding. Money's tight, so it's going to be modest grant funding to make it happen. Otherwise, where's the money going to come from? But additionally, where the council added value was it assisted in the applications and the coordination of the scheme. So I think that's something that HDC could really support. In addition, one of the things that HDC's done is that earlier this year, after hearing from a local resident, we've been promoting the Can't Wait card scheme to businesses across the district. It's a nationally recognised scheme that encourages businesses to make their toilets available to people who have one of these cards. And therefore people with a medical need, that means that they need to go to the toilet and they need to go immediately. So we really do get this, and I think this is something we should be able to support. Let me say how we think this might happen. So in Horsham District, our enterprise team are currently establishing the Rural and Market Towns Economic Alliance, known as RMTEA. And it's going to be a new partnership bringing together businesses and community leaders from the southern market towns and large villages. This will include Billingshurst, Henfield, Poolborough, Stenning and Storrington, so the two places that you mentioned. And the purpose, sorry, I've lost my screen. It's not helpful, sorry. but it's to encourage collaboration, deliver practical projects that support local economies, the high street and the visitor economy. And this is being finalised now and will be formally established by the new year. So this is something that's will be happening soon. So one of these strands is about making the villages more attractive, accessible and welcoming for residents and visitors alike. And the idea of a community toilet scheme would really fit with this objective and is already something that Cabinet members have been discussing. And as we're working towards drafting the annual plan for next year, this could offer a practical and collaborative project that could be explored through the RMTEA as one of its early initiatives and could be potentially piloted in places such as Henfield and Storrington, where there's already local groups that have identified needs. So, yeah, fully supportive of that, and let's find a way to make it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Raby. Councillor Clark, Harry, did you have a supplementary you wish to
I
add?
don't have a supplementary question following that very encouraging answer. Thank you very much for that. And I'm interested about the RMTEAs, which I'd heard a slight whisper of. That would be great because I think it involves community partnerships and possibly groups like Access Henfield as well. And I just think that local members and community partnerships and everyone would love to go along on that journey with the council. So thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant, thank you.
Right. No follow-up statement? No? Right, thank you very much, Councillor Perry. Right, that brings us to the end of business. Unless there's any urgent business that's cropped up since the start of the meeting. No? I'll bring the meeting to a close at 7:28. Thank you very much for your attention.